February 23, Guyana celebrated 44 years as a republic. On the eve of the celebration, as has become customary, cabinet members fanned out into the 10 administrative regions and joined with residents in hoisting the golden arrowhead. This year, Minister in the Ministry of Agriculture Ali Baksh was with residents of Region 2, where he reflected on the growth of Guyana's economy and the opportunities being created for today's youths.
In the year 1970, the intention then of the previous government was to decentralize and democratize our society. From 1970 to 1973, instead of we've seen democracy in our country, it was a denigration of democracy, and what we entered into a phase of undemocratic rule and dictatorship. And all of us who remember as Guyanese, in 1973, there was one of the worst rigged elections in Guyana, where many people lost their lives. People were on the street because the dictatorship in our country was so brutal that our economy was going down and down and down, and people would have had to resist what was going on. But that doesn't stop in 1973. From then on, we have had rigged election until 1992. And what was the problem we faced as a nation? During the period of our republic, our economy was so battered that we have had scarcities in many, many areas. Our schools, our infrastructures were down. Many of our resources at that time was down. Our rice industry was in a bad shape. Our sugar industry was in a bad shape. Our infrastructures were in an atrocious state. But in 1992, when democracy returned in our country, we have seen a glorious return where our people's lives have changed, where the people in our country have moved one step forward in the right direction. My dear brothers and sisters, today we can say our economy has grown very much so that even our children of today are living not in the life of the past, they are living a life of the future. They are independent, and we have got today what you call a middle income family going. Today's children is living in an atmosphere that they don't want to. Rice farmers' children don't want to go into the rice field anymore. Sugarcane farmers don't want their children to go into sugarcane and cut cane anymore. Any other laborers don't want their children to do the work they were doing anymore. Children are having the facilities for higher education. In our own region here, region number 2, we can say safely kids who sometimes people call them slow learners and high flyers, but they know opportunity, there's more opportunity today than ever before. The other thing I want to say about matrimony, the intention of the late Forrest Burnham, I know, was to ensure that we got matrimony as a day of celebration. Celebration of what? Celebration of our culture, our rich heritage, culture of our Amerindian people. When you see them with those beads, when you see them with those straws that they wear and they dance with and they show at cultural events, must remember it's a part of their history. That is what their foreparents came with in our country centuries ago. That is what they wear and that is what they're living for decades. We must watch also and see what our Afro-Guyanese brothers and sisters are wearing. The culture that they brought by their foreparents from Africa. Our Indo-Guyanese brothers and sisters with their sari and shalwar and so on is a part of their dress, the costumes that they brought, our foreparents brought into our country. The drum that we saw just now from Larry is part of our culture. The drum, the dance we saw just now is part of our culture, our rich culture. We got to maintain those cultures.
The flag raising program was spiced up with several cultural renditions.
Dीवाना तुरंत किसी किसी बात न
Residents of Region 4 were joined by Health Minister Dr. Barry Ramsaran at the Regional Democratic Council office at Triumph, East Coast, Demerara, where he spoke of the achievements that Guyana has made under the United Nations Millennium Development Goals.
Guyana has achieved significantly under those. So while we do have challenges which you know better than I do about, and which we'll speak about a little bit later in my presentation, I want you to recognize that we have achieved significantly. For example, a few months ago, our Honorable Prime Minister went to Rome to receive an award from the FAO. That is the Food and Agricultural Organization, an arm of the WHO. That's a significant thing. What was the reward? What was that award about? Guyana, as it turned out, was one of the only 17 countries, one in only 17 countries across the world, including big countries with mighty armies, with big granaries, and strong intellectual backings. One of the only 17 countries in the world to have reduced hunger and addressed food security. That is a fact.
Minister within the Ministry of Finance, Juan Edgel, was in Region 5. He reminded residents there of the need to work together in order to gain consensus with the aim of securing a brighter future for all.
This is a true reflection of what makes us great as Guyanese. When we can cross the barriers of ethnicity, when we can cross the barriers of class, when we can cross the barriers of village, and we could come together and celebrate what makes us truly Guyanese under that motto that we are still working towards the ultimate realization of one people, one nation, and one destiny.
The minister also called on the gathering to look away from the past and focus on the future, as the People's Progressive Party Civic has worked over the past 22 years to secure a bright future for all. He, however, reminded the gathering that while there is much to celebrate on this, the country's 44th independence anniversary, a very serious situation looms which will cast some amount of uncertainty of a promising future for Guyanese.
It is very disappointing tonight with all of the dance, the music, the revelry, and tomorrow the color and the celebration that will be shared across the country. We still have people who want to hold Guyana ransom by saying, we will vote with you, but we want this, we want that, we want this, we want that. And the list of what they want is never coming to an end. What is my message to us? All of us, not some of us, but all of us must lift our voices and let the men and the women that sit in the benches of the opposition know you want a bright future for Guyana.
Meanwhile, Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Anil Nandlal attended the flag-raising ceremony at State House in Region 6, where he joined with residents to reflect on achievements made in the last 44 years.
And we now live in a country where we are truly free, where we can speak our minds, where we can criticize the government of the day in, day out, and we do so fearlessly and without the fear of any reprisal or recrimination. We live in a country where newspapers publish every single day matters critical of the government, and they are permitted to do so. That is the beauty of freedom and democracy. We live in a country where our children are given the freedom to choose a path of education You know why we have made those accomplishments? Because over the last 20 years, we have invested in the people of our country. Because we know that it is the people of this country that will drive the developmental agenda of this country.
He noted that while there have been undeniable progress in every region, there are still many challenges to overcome as Guyana is far from a bed of roses. He used the opportunity to call on citizens to use their influence to ensure that their leaders pass the Anti-Money Laundering and Countering the Financing of Terrorism Amendment Bill as soon as possible.
If we don't pass this anti-money laundering law that we have in the Parliament for the past year, then comrades and friends, we will be exposed to a whole regime of sanctions. And all the progress that I'm asking you to reflect upon, all the progress that we are celebrating today can very well be reversed. That is why when we reflect upon our achievements, we have to vow and pledge that we will not allow those accomplishments to be reversed. And if we don't pass the law within the time that is given to us, and we now only have 1 week, we only have 1 week. Guyana is the only country in the entire Western Hemisphere that has not passed this law. Why is it that all the countries have passed it? All these countries have mad people, they have bad people. All of them have passed this law. And why is it that leaders in this country are refusing to pass this law and exposing you, the people of this country, of the devastating impacts that will visit this country if that law is not passed?
In Region 7, a call was made for the coming together of the people towards building a more resilient region. Minister of Amerindian Affairs Pauline Sukai was in attendance at this ceremony.
I believe that today Guyana has developed, has transitioned. Guyana has also transformed the landscape which we in the past, or those in the past, have not dreamt of. We have done quite a lot as a nation. We have much more to do. And therefore, I encourage all of you to remain steadfast, to be patriotic, to ensure that you commit yourself to dedicate, to put forward your best initiative so that Guyana will remain in the forefront of many of the developing countries, that Guyana will stand out as a model from which others can look towards as we generate and establishes many good practices in this country.
Meanwhile, Regional Chairman Gordon Bradford warned about the dangers of the region's dependency on one industry.
We all know that our economy in Bartica Region 7 is mainly dependent upon what happens in the mining sector. And once that sector receives any shock, whether it's positive or negative, we are at the front line and we will feel it more than anybody else. We had the price of gold sliding downwards and it has affected us. So we have to look at other ways and means for economic sustenance. And I've said it over and over that tourism is one of the main areas that we need to work on in our region and especially in Bartica.
Osa chica doya, osa bonwa. Osa chica yaro, osa chica yaro, osa chica yaro. Deko nakama yaro, deko nakama. Osa chica doya, osa chica. drums, drums, drums. I am a daughter descended from Africa, and in my blood I feel the rhythm. Over the seas where my foreparents come from, they make sure I inherit the sound of the drums. Innocent man, virgin man, so mad, really mad. I tell you it's bad. When I hear the rang tang tang ticky ticky tang tang, rang tang tang ticky ticky tang tang, rage, everybody rage, every soul rage, out the control rage, 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 rage. Yes, the rhythm rage, from the drums rage, in the belly rage, 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 rage.
In Region 8, residents of Kopinang heard that Guyanese can celebrate the 44th Republic Anniversary because pride and dignity have returned to the celebration. Minister of Local Government and Regional Development Norman Whitaker and the Regional Executive Officer Ronald Harsiwak were present at this flag-raising ceremony.
We are not saying to you that we have achieved everything. We are not saying that we are in heaven. What we are saying is when you look at where we were in 1970, when them people, them times said that we were a republic, to where we are now. In those times, they had nothing to celebrate. Nothing. Because we had achieved nothing. But today, 44 years later, we have a lot to celebrate. And I'm happy that I can join with you in celebrating your success stories in education. We have Amerindians who are doctors, Amerindians who are engineers, Amerindians who are health teachers, education officers, Amerindians who are ministers. We have something to celebrate.
With the restoration of democracy on October 5th, 1992, the late President Cherry Jagan laid the groundwork and the cornerstone for many radical and fundamental changes that will see Guyanese people having a better standard of living and quality of life. The People's Progressive Party civic government has over the years continued to build on the groundwork of Comrade Cherry. We have restored rights and liberties that were stuffed out. We have improved the standard of life. We have maintained a stable macroeconomic environment conducive to creating employment and economic growth. We have modernized the physical infrastructure of our country from Morawan in the north to Masakanari in the south. The People's Progressive Party, through its social and economic policies, have continued to support and catapult the development and expansion of Region Number 8.
Meanwhile, Minister of Public Works Robson Ben was with residents of Region 1. Minister of Human Services and Social Security Jennifer Webster was with residents in Region 3. Minister of Labour Dr. Nanda Gopal was in Region 9, and Presidential Advisor on Governance Gail Teixeira was in Region 10. On the morning of the Republic Anniversary, the golden arrowhead was hoisted in the forecourt of Parliament buildings in the presence of the Commander-in-Chief, President Donald Ramotar, and the military top brass. The golden arrowhead was raised by a flag ensign and accompanied the ceremonial 21-gun salute as members of the cabinet, diplomatic corps, and the public observed the somber tradition. Preceding the flag raising was the arrival of Prime Minister Samuel Hines, who was given the general salute, followed by the President's arrival, the presidential salute, and an inspection of the Guard of Honor. Guyana gained Republican status on February 23, 1970, close to 4 years after it achieved independence.